All right, Lucas. So today is the big day with what's going on with respect to GameStop, and I don't know if you know what day it is according to um, like national days. You know, like some days are National Pizza Day, National Cake Day. Do you know what today is?
No, what is today?
It's Take Your Cat to Work Day.
Oh, I'm sure cats across the United States are really pissed about that.
Well, but you gotta. I mean, look. Okay, it's GameStop, right? And then who's the big guy with GameStop? It's
Oh, the roaring kitty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, quite clever of them, huh? I don't know if that was planned or if it was just like a clever, oh, we could do it Friday or we could do it Monday. And Monday is take your cat to work day.
Uh, uh, did you bring your cat to work today?
Well, I mean, the fact that I work from home and I don't have a cat, so
Oh, okay. So
it's that's hard on two fronts for me.
it's your adopt a cat day. That's what it is. Um, I do have a cat, but Apogee will she disappears every time anything happens. So, and I do work from home too. So, Rusty, what about you? Cat? Got a cat? No cat?
Right. So here's
Yeah.
the take your cat to work day, Monday, June 17th. Like this is not a joke. Like this really is a thing. Like there's a day for everything, man. It's kind of crazy. It's like if you were
How
to
crazy.
get a calendar with every single national whatever day there is, you probably have one every single day.
Oh, there's always strange days. You know, my cat actually, because I travel sometimes, disappear for a while, and my cat, whenever I'm headed to the car, like she is there. She wants to get in that car and she wants to go with me. She also goes on hikes with me in the morning. So, my cats and my dogs, we always go for a hike in the morning. So I'm not sure she's a cat. There we go. Roaring
Right.
kitty.
And but the funny thing, again, just like with all the jokes that surround this, it's like I don't know how many times Keith Gill said, "I'm not a cat." So okay, does that mean that they're not going to take him to work because he's not a cat?
Maybe the take the cat. Maybe with taking the roaring kitty is Keith Gill. Like, is the announcement? Could they announce that they're giving him a seat on the board? Or
I don't think they can announce anything they haven't previously announced. I think that's rules from the SEC. So like they have to pre-publish what they're going to say, and then they can have their shareholders meeting and like say whatever they've already said, but I don't think they can say anything new. But here is something that's very interesting. So this one's actually in the title. Okay, so apparently this is the announcement for the GameStop meeting, right? So today, and we're going to cover this one live, so we'll be on for a bit longer. Normally Mondays we're only on for an hour, but today we're gonna try and be on live when this thing's actually happening. But check this out. Join as a guest. You hold your shares at Robinhood. Join as a stockholder. You hold your shares with Computershare. Do you know what this language actually means, Lucas? Do you know what this is talking about?
I mean, it's definitely. I understand it from the vantage of Robinhood, which definitely seems a snub or possibly a. Robinhood was invited as a shareholder. I don't know who Computershare is though, but uh,
So how this works is, if you buy stock, normally what's happening is you're buying through a brokerage and you don't really own it. You are entering into a custodial relationship with a different entity. So your brokerage is acting as your custodian, and they hold the shares for you. And they can do various things. So they're working on your behalf and doing whatever they're doing, but you don't actually own those shares. When you own shares in a company, usually what you have to do is you have to have what's called a stock certificate. Now, in times past, this was a paper certificate. And your grandma may have had some of these. Sometimes you may find them when you're going through estates or whatever, and they'll actually have this stock certificate. And this is the way that you traditionally had purchased shares in a company. You would buy them, you would own a portion of the company, and you would just hold it for a really long period of time. Like that's like how stock ownership worked. You didn't flip it, you didn't do high frequency trading. None of this stuff existed. And it's why in times past, they could go down into the pit and like hold up, little slips of paper and trade directly between, stock traders because they would do so in a stock exchange and they would do physically in a pit. So that was traditionally how stocks were held. But then we started to digitize, and we've discussed this on the show in the past with settlements and stuff like that. But long story short is Computershare is the registered agent for how you directly register shares to an individual. So this company, Computershare, is how you can do a thing called direct registration. And that is the digital equivalent of a stock certificate. So what this is essentially saying is if you hold your shares directly, through Computershare, the direct registered agent for how you put the shares directly in your name, you're a shareholder. If you are doing something else like Robinhood, those shares may not be real shares and they may not be uh, representative of shareholder, but rather as some kind of a weird IOU or something. I think that's what's implied here, which is very, very interesting.
It is very interesting. And wasn't there a push earlier after the first GME hoopla a couple of years ago? Wasn't there a push to use this registration through Computershare or whomever to actually register their stocks?
Yeah, there has been a big push for that, and I think one of the things that they might do today is just say how many shares have been directly registered. This is essentially what we're talking about right now, this direct registration system. So see this little entry here. The direct registration system enables investors to elect to hold their assets in book entry form directly with the issuer by leveraging DTC's connectivity. Through DTC's DRS service, assets can be electronically transferred to and from the transfer agent, broker dealer, easily move shares in and out of DRS. So this is essentially saying that you're holding the name or you're holding the shares directly in your name, and that you are not holding them with a custodian who's doing this on your behalf. So when you do that, it seems to imply that GameStop is saying, if you have done this, if you are holding them DRS through Computershare, you are a stockholder. You're doing something else, you will join as a guest.
Well, going back to that other screen, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation (DTCC). Um, what do you know about the DTCC?
That the DTCC is like an entity. You know what? Let's just pull it up. Let's instead of me riffing on it, you asked a question. Let's just try and do it live. But let me. I was pulling up one other thing before you asked that question. So
Oh, okay, well we can go to
no,
some
no,
of
no,
those.
no. This is I just wanted to reference like who these guys are. So these guys are an Australian company, right? And if you look at what they are, see they're this site keeps wanting to do something. So they're the transfer agency, and they handle this type of stock stuff for various companies, right? And so this entity is responsible for GameStop.
And you think did GameStop select Computershare to be the to provide technical solutions for the digital registration of their stocks? Is that how that works?
Well, so I think this little graphic here, and maybe I can zoom out a little bit and put it in here, but you can see how this is supposed to work. So you've got the authorized stock. So this is how a corporate entity through their legal charter says this is the stock that we've done, right? And you can have this differentiation, like stock that is according to the charter of the company, and then issued shares, right? So then you have this thing where they could be holding back some unissued shares, and then out of this, you've got the outstanding shares, and then these are the two things, right? Registered ownership shares. That's what we're talking about now, and then beneficially owned shares. So you can see this is like Seed and Co. and like how all this works with this custodial relationship. So like what it seems to be implied by Computershare is they're saying if you're over on this side, you're a stockholder. If you're over on this side, This is where the shenanigans have been happening, right? Something's been going on over here. This is where, naked short selling and all the rest of this stuff has been theorized, and there's lots of due diligence that's been done with GameStop, and it's all pretty much on this side. So it's really interesting that with this announcement of their shareholders meeting and with what happened with respect to people trying to log in, they're saying, well, I guess this is one way that we could try to ensure that we have this segregated way of that we're going to try and control how many people are trying to log into the shareholders meeting. So these folks here, they have a good handle on how many there are. Anybody that's coming in through that not path, maybe they're going to give them some delayed feed or something, because partly why we're having the meeting today instead of having it, I don't know, what was it, last Thursday, is because there were so many people on the planet that were trying to log in to see the shareholders meeting that crashed the servers. It looked like a distributed denial of service attack. So if you have too many people that are trying to connect to a computer resource, then if that thing isn't set up to scale appropriately, then it can actually take down the server. They used to refer to this as the hug of death. I think the first site that really encountered this was a site called Slashdot. And then as we've moved to various different social media platforms like Reddit, if something gets really popular on Reddit, some post gets a lot of attention, then you can have this same hug of death. And so this seems to be what's happening with GameStop, is that there's this tremendous amount of interest in what's going on here from the entire planet. So when they all tried to log into the servers last week, it essentially crashed the servers, and so they've been trying to make sure everything was ready to go. And maybe this is some kind of a signal to all the people who have been buying GameStop and are fans of the company that, hey, if you did this thing, you're in a special class, or maybe this is a stronger signal in some way, because there are all these little tiny signals that have been given from various entities. Ryan Cohen famously put this post up. Let me find one more, because this was the first indication that people got clued into the fact that they should DRS their shares. I'll
Sure, go ahead. Yes, interesting. Are we going to be watching the live stream, or are you joining as a stockholder?
Well, I can join as a stockholder. Yeah.
Oh, my, privileged access.
Yep.
Did you find the Ryan Cohen tweet? Sorry to talk while you're looking. There we go.
So this was the tweet, or the post, whatever. And there are tiny little coded things in everything that's said. Nothing is said without some hidden message, right? So look at this. This is a computer chair, I guess, is the way people interpreted this, and that was the first signal that people got that we should be DRSing our shares to ensure that if you actually have some GameStop, that you really own it the way that you want to and think you're going to own it.
And why does the Computershare convey that?
I don't know, because it rhymes with Computershare, maybe? I don't know.
Okay, Computershare, gotcha. And what does I mean, also a toilet, what everything else is getting flushed?
That's, I think, just like the snarky humor of these guys. They're meme lords, so I don't know. Why would anybody have all this stuff in the toilet? I'm not sure. Just because it's funny?
Well, if that's your office, you never really have to leave unless you're just going to eat, right?
Where's the cat? Where's the litter box, actually? What is that on the right? Is that a fax machine and an old telephone? Is that some trader? Is that some trader specific equipment there, Grant? Is that a telex machine or something?
No, that to me looks like just a straight up fax machine. If I had to guess, that looks like some '90s style stuff. You asked a question about what the DTCC is, and you and my favorite repository of all knowledge. Here it is, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. So That's now a financial market infrastructure company.
Yeah, interesting. And the DTCC has come up before. I know that they were requested to be in the House meeting in which the hedge fund and Citadel and Keith Gill all showed up, and DTCC did not send a representative to that. So I thought that was interesting that they managed to skip it. Um, um, I just think it's one of the wheels on the backside, maybe the Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac of stock clearinghouse. We also talk about settlement, and I think it interesting, like what happens whenever settlement gets moved to something automated like a blockchain. What role would the DTCC play in that?
Well, I think there's still a significant role in some of this, right? Because if you look at somewhat their their charter is, it's about trade reporting and infrastructure. I mean, there's still a lot to happen here. I think what blockchain does is it enables for the settlement component and the finality and the auditability and the ledger. Just because we replace antiquated technology with newer technology doesn't always mean that we eliminate the need for certain companies, although it can happen. Oftentimes it doesn't. What it means is that the responsibilities or the mechanisms under which something would normally happen change to some new form. So I think if we were to move to blockchain based settlement of stock trading, then it's something like the DTCC likely would still exist, but that they, instead of doing what they had been doing in the past, they would do it a slightly different way, and likely some of the illegal activity that has been speculated to have happened then and enabled by the DTCC would be curtailed or eliminated completely. That's the thought here, is that that's what would occur, because essentially using blockchain, we could have not T0, but dang close, or is probably as close to T0 as you could get with immediate finality at whatever speed the blockchain works. And there's nuance within how blockchains work, of how long you need to wait until you can be really, really confident that whatever trade you did is settled. So it's not instantaneous, it's not zero, but it's as close to zero as you can possibly get with how our current understanding of financial institutions and technologies can work. So that's what I think would happen if we were to move to blockchain based stock settlement.
Well, and I scrolled down. I pulled it up on my own on page and looked at the history, and it's interesting that the DTCC arises because of the paperwork problem of actually shipping all of these stock paper certificates around. I was wondering if they were providing some sort of insurance, or how they get their foot in the door and hold on to it. There's also this Seed, CEDE and Company.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Seed and Company?
Well, let's pull that one up too. I mean, we might as well just round the whole thing up since we're doing it. I mean, again, I'm passingly familiar with some of these things. It's like how much time do you really want to spend getting up to speed on certain stuff? Like, I'm not necessarily a financial a sleuth and like full knowledge of this stuff. Like, who really needs to know these things? It's like when I first learned about this as a self-custody proponent, I mean, I certainly said, oh, of course I should own my shares in whatever way gives me the most self-custody equivalent from what I'm used to with blockchain, right? It's like, not your keys, not your crypto. I guess the equivalent in stock would be not directly registered to you, potentially not your shares. That might be the equivalent here. And until we have the direct ability to self custody our shares, like how Exodus works with the Algorand blockchain, then this is the closest thing you can get. So as soon as I learned that, I didn't spend a lot of time on this other side, but there has been a significant amount of understanding that's started to happen according to what's happening on that right side, because essentially most of the GameStop situation, and also what happened with Overstock, what happened with Tesla, what has been theorized to be happening with Trump's new company as well, the Truth Social, is that this is where, you know, this bad behavior is occurring, is all on this right hand side of this you know, graphic. Is that what's happening on the right hand side here is where, you know, market makers and naked short selling and all the rest of this weirdness is going on. You know, these things that were supposed to be legislated out, especially after what happened in 2008, none of this was supposed to be occurring anymore. But it appears that all of those efforts were in vain.
Absolutely. And you know, it's you mentioned Exodus and Algorand and their use of a blockchain for the settlement of the transaction of their shares. You know, I think part of why it's interesting to begin to look into this now is as we talk, or as self custody becomes something that can be settled digitally. It's like the use of a blockchain for that is very important, and these are the companies on the backside that I don't know. In some parts, to me, it's surprising that they're private, although I'm sure they're heavily regulated. But at the same time, you put you know, physical certificates or people in charge of them. Like, these are points of vulnerability.
Okay, so here is Seed and Co, right? So I think this highlighted piece is the interesting part, right? So we've been discussing this, and now that we know what direct registration is, look at this. This is insane number. Look at that, 83%. So most people that are owning stock do not own the stock directly. And I think that this is exactly the problem that we've had in crypto world as well. Like, this is why everybody's getting wrecked with things like FTX and whatever. It's like, you know, you gotta get into the habit of taking responsibility for the assets that you're going to hold. Like, you know, custodial relationships are the thing that has been getting the world into trouble for a long time here.
Right, and there's also, you know, there once used to be a narrative of you inherited stock certificates, or some, you know, you looked into your great uncle's safe deposit box after he passed away, and left it to you, and you found in there old stock certificates for General Electric, and all of a sudden you're a millionaire, or inherited $100,000. That doesn't exist anymore. And having these institutions that physically hold the stocks, and the speed of transmission that electronic, you know, e-trade exchanges have brought to us, has really ramped up the financialization, like people making money on moving stocks around rather than holding on to them because they believe in the future of the company. Which brings us back to GME. It's interesting that some people picked GME, like this Reddit Wall Street Bets group, Warren Kitty amongst them, picked GME because they thought it was a company that provided value, that provided something that they wanted to see in the world, and they could see financial institutions who were abusing it. So,
Well, and this is my favorite example, right? So this one is so recent, so close at hand about what happens with you know, these custodial relationships, right? So you've got this entity, Prime Trust, whose sole purpose in life is just to custody assets. They were working with some stablecoin issuers. Particularly, the reason why this came to light for me was because, as we know, there was a stable coin on Chia that had existed called Stably, and they had used Prime Trust to custody a bunch of the dollars that they were using to issue one-to-one. So the way this stable coin worked was, it's not like the one that we talked about a while ago, which was an algorithmic stable coin that was Byte Cash, but rather this one said, hey, we're going to take dollars, we're going to go give them to a custodian, the custodian's going to hold them, and then one-to-one, for every dollar that sits there in the custodian's hands, we are going to create one unit of stable coin, and that stable coin will then trade on the blockchain. And Prime Trust just lost track of the money they were supposed to be keeping track of through whatever means. And I think really ultimately, if you dig into the situation of what happened with Prime Trust, is they had a bunch of crypto assets and they mismanaged the keys. And so they did not properly do the thing that they needed to do, which was to keep control of the crypto assets. They lost a whole bunch of them because they lost the private keys. And really, what this comes down to, and I think what was a really interesting thing about this situation, is Prime Trust had been audited several times, like multiple times over a period of years. And every time what happened is the Prime Trust audit went something like this. The auditor comes in and they said, "Hey, we want to just check to make sure you got everything you're supposed to have." And Prime Trust would show them a ledger of assets and say, "Yep, this is all the stuff that we've got." And the auditor would say, "Okay, cool, no problem." They never made them prove that they actually had the private keys that were associated with the assets they said they had under control, which would have been a relatively simple operation. And so a sophisticated auditor would have said, "Hey, not only do you have to show us what assets you have control of, but you have to show us that you are in control of the private keys, and you have to do that by signing a message with the private key, and we will verify it." And if they had done that step, then this would have been detected far, far earlier, and it probably would have meant that, like, either these guys would have been bankrupt earlier, less funds would have been lost, and whatever. And so this is kind of interesting because if you recall, when we were talking with Yakuhidu about the bridge that was set up on Chia, that they had this thing called attestations, and that these attestations would occur on a regular basis where they would prove that everybody who is supposed to be operating within this bridge still had control of the private keys that they're supposed to have, so that they're going to do this ceremony. I think, what, if I recall right, they were doing that once a week. Do you remember, Lucas?
I don't remember the frequency, but it was that sounds. I think that's what the frequency was.
Well, we'll call it a week, but if it was more frequent than that, I would doubt it. But I think I remember saying that I thought that was a little more than was necessary. A weekly basis seems like it would be more than is needed. But yeah, they're definitely doing something along those lines. And so yeah, to kind of bring this thread around, this is what we're talking about here is, self-custody of assets. What does it mean in the world of stock to have self-custody of your assets? This is the equivalent of self-custody, sort of Computershare. And to sort of wrap this up for everybody that's kind of come in a bit late from the discussion, is we're talking about why in the announcement of the GameStop annual meeting, like, what's really going on here, right? We've got some people who are being told that they will be a guest at the meeting, and other people that they're saying they will be a stockholder, and what is really going on with direct registration. So this is kind of a fun post to take note, as like Computershare being the ones that the people who have the ability to come in as stockholders, those individuals who have actually directly registered their shares.
Good summation, Grant. In the you sent me a tweet. Well, stable coins. I'll start from stable coins. Stable coins seem to be popping up more and more. Like for a long time, we talked about blockchains, layer ones, whether the Howey test, whether things were security, et cetera, et cetera. As that conversation seems to be like coming to some points of agreement. Like Paul Ryan, I heard in an interview maybe 2 months ago, mentioned that creating a stable coin could solve our debt crisis. And you sent me a tweet with Vance Spencer. I put it over in the chat if you want to bring it up on the screen. If the government allows a U.S. private industry to dollarize every country on the planet via stable coins, what do you think of this notion of using stable coins to reduce the ability of governments to create to inflate their currency, inflate the base of their currency?
Well, I think there's something going on with stable coins. So stable coins have been a new place where value has shifted, right? There's a tremendous amount of TVL, or total value, locked within stablecoins. People are holding these on various exchanges, and a lot on unbanked exchanges. Like, so there's a lot of exchanges where the only way to get your money out is to actually take control of the crypto, right? Like, you don't actually have the ability to say, I want fiat. The way a lot of these unbanked exchanges work is they're centralized exchanges, and the centralized exchanges purely trade in crypto, and so their pairs are oftentimes paired to stable coins. So if you want to get your money out, essentially you have to take control of some crypto, and then you can bring it to some other centralized exchange and then sell it if you want to get it into your fiat bank account, whatever. You want to get it back to USD so you can take it down to the grocery store and buy milk or whatever, because the grocery store probably doesn't take Tether or something like that. So you can't just take your crypto and go do something with it. You got to sell it somewhere. And so the stable coins are being used as like the trading pair for a lot of crypto. If you look at most exchanges, the pairs are oftentimes something to some stable coin like USDT, which is Tether. So stable coins have created a appetite for dollars and treasuries. So some stable coins are using dollars, like the one we just talked about with Stably. They were actually using dollars. Some other ones have been using treasuries directly. If you know a lot about how the dollar works, there's dollar and then there's treasury, and sort of there's a hierarchy, right? And so a lot of people will just hold the treasuries instead of holding the dollars because you get an interest rate on the treasuries. And so the stable coins may have played a role in staving off some of what has been happening with the dollar, and the way that things have been going with creation of more dollars in the M2 or the M4 money supply. Because if you're going to create a stable coin and you're going to have sort of this one-to-one relationship, then it's got to be backed with something. So if a lot of these dollars are getting parked, then it looks very similar to the way that dollars were being held as a reserve asset by different countries, right? A lot of countries were holding dollars and then just like keeping them on reserve as a reserve currency, because they were planning to use it to buy oil or whatever else that they were planning to use their dollars for, just as a way to hold wealth that would protect them from maybe the inflation or some other thing that was going on with other types of currencies. And so dollars have been very ubiquitously traded and held. And so this rise of stable coins being dollar denominated, it may have staved this thing off for some period of time. And what some are saying is that this idea of creating all these stable coins may actually allow the dollar to continue to do this for some substantive period of time. That's what this post is about. So let me pull that one up. We can take a quick look at it.
Sure, and I really like the notion of putting, like, people beginning to understand a stable coin as being based on say treasury bills, maybe some amount of specie like gold. You mentioned Tether, Tether alloy. I noticed the other day, like they now have a stable coin that's tied to not only dollars but also gold held in a Swiss vault somewhere. Although we go back to prime trust and self custody in some regards to that. Yeah, that's the tweet that I was referring to. And I do think it will be interesting to. I think it shows a growth of an understanding of money as a rate based on other things, and using ledgers, blockchains, whatever we want to call them, but educating the users, or those people who are say underneath the dollar, Americans maybe more so than international folks. I think it will help us to understand you said M2, M4, the supplies of money that are out there.
Yeah, let's let's just stay on stable coins for a minute, because there was an interesting thing that happened that was announced. I think, as we continuously kind of check in on things that are happening in the news, this one, which you referred to, is worth talking about. So if you've been watching what's been going on with gold, the gold price has been kind of going a little nuts. Have you been keeping track of it at all, Lucas? We're at a 10-year high on gold.
I obliquely check it every now and then, but haven't.
Not only are we on a 10-year high, I think we might be approaching an all-time high if we aren't above it. I know that we've either been touching it, been bouncing near it. We might not be exactly at it today, but dang close to an all-time high on gold. So this is pretty interesting to see that Tether, which is a Binance product, is now exploring this idea of doing gold-backed stable coin. So it's denominated in USD, so it's according to the price of gold in US dollars, but actually backed by gold. Now, I don't know if that means you could take delivery of the gold. Like, I know that there were products that actually predated Bitcoin that were doing this. This was back in the time of when Bitcoin was first being launched. These products were very, very popular. There was e-gold. There was a whole variety of different things that were launching, and many of them were shut down by the government because the government did not want a thing like this to exist. They said, you cannot do this. If you're trading in this, if you're creating this, you're definitely a money services lender, whatever, money transfer agent, and a lot of them didn't have the appropriate licensure that was required for them to be able to make these types of products. And so here we are, I guess, with Binance, the Chinese-based company, and they're creating this product.
Well, the price of gold also seems to go up whenever people are looking for something besides a reserve. The dollar as the the reserve that people have traditionally used since the 30s internationally.
Let's look at this historical one. So this is the one that I remember pretty well. E-gold.
E-gold, yeah, and e-gold. There was another one, a symbol. I was trying to think of the name. There was another big one at the time of e-gold, or BitGold is also what I thought of. But yeah, this also brings up. I said we kind of like, well, when Torres versus or the Torres decision, Ripple versus the SEC. When the Torres decision was released, I thought it was interesting that it was bifurcated into two parts, and I think that is that brings us back to the notion: is money a financial instrument? And in some ways, when I'm thinking about money, I think money is different than a financial ledger. Finance is going to the future, making bets on something that's going to happen and counting backwards from there. But money is a account of something that exists in the world, and in some ways, like, starts at the present and counts into the future. And I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a great book about that, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'll look it up here in a second. But the government certainly tried to be the sole issuer of monies for quite some time. And yes, whenever people began to use electronic networks, digital networks to make a money, they were corralled in with financial instruments and put under the thumb of the SEC to stop them. And even be as that was happening, also remember when Bitcoin happened, the decentralization aspect of Bitcoin led to the notions of what was it in 2012, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which was in not so much about online piracy, but about trying to shut off decentralized monies. So we've come to a place in the future now where our governments seem to understand and accept that they can't shut them off, then they're going to have to learn how to use them. Hashtag stablecoins.
It looks like we've got part of our answer of how this is going to work. So, physical gold stored in Switzerland, and then chopped up on the blockchain. So this is, I guess, what normally would be called an RWA, a real world asset. And I think this one's on ETH. So this is Tether's version of gold on the Ethereum blockchain.
Yep, it is on ETH. Swiss Vault. Couldn't find out which bank that was, but is there more than one bank anymore? I think the UBS. I don't know. I think there's essentially one bank in Switzerland anymore. Need Patrick in here to tell us about the banks over there.
I know this isn't the first time anybody's tried to do this. I'm also familiar with this one. DigiGold is one. This one I think is like an Indian one.
You know, going back to those that were frozen, I wonder if they still have any of their assets in holding from the ledgered gold that was held in the early 2000s with those platforms that got shut down, eGold, BitGold. There's still one more that I can't think of. It started with an A, but I can't bring it to mind.
I tried to find the one you referenced, which was BitGold, that I don't recall that one.
BitGold was Nick Szabo. Let's see what I can find.
I thought BitGold was like some kind of a fork of Bitcoin.
BitGold was before Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I think BitGold was the first to use hashes.
Was that on your big chart of all the technology?
Pull up that great chart. I think that chart was really wonderful. In Gene. Have you heard Gene mention that his first digital currency he created in 1995?
Well, I recall him saying that he was contemplating something, but I don't remember him actually creating one. Did he actually create one in 95?
I thought he did create one, but there were things like the hashing. There were pieces of I don't know whether it was the hashing or the I don't know. We'd have to ask him about that. It might be interesting to dig into that. But I just know that there were many attempts. Like this was the notion of using networks to create money was not something that magically appeared in 2003.
Nope, mine made the list, but BitGold did not. eGold is there, but I don't see. I see Nick Szabo. Oh no, BitGold is after. Okay, so eGold and then BitGold. Yep, Nick Szabo in 1998.
I've got so many tabs open now. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to just like pull that up. It's a little too small for my screen.
And trying to zoom up actually made it smaller. How that works.
BitGold was actually before Hashcash. So timestamped database. The timestamped database.
Yeah, but look, here's eGold is way before that. And like they're see, you can see 1996 to 2008. That was when that thing occurred. So, it's kind of along with the NSA's How to Make a Mint, whatever that. I'm not familiar with that paper. I guess that's the thing that. But there's our buddy right there on peer-to-peer networks, Bram Cohen. I think did they spell his name wrong? I think they spelled his name wrong.
I can't see it. It's too
Well, they've
fine.
got an H in there. I'm not sure that that's actually correct. I don't even think he calls himself that, but maybe.
You know, the Denver Mint, we talked the other day, and I mentioned that Colorado was an interesting state because it broke a lot of rules with regards to the creation of a state in the history of the country. But and that's because gold was discovered in them there hills, the Rocky Mountains, and a bunch of there we go.
Definitely spelled his name wrong. Look, see, there's his name right there, and his Twitter account is with a no H, but there's an H there, so I think they
There's the page. Well,
mild mistake in your chart here.
yeah. Well, send him a DM. You'll be 257 on there. Or yeah, add a comment. Don't send him a DM. He'll love you for that. Going back to Colorado, the Denver, there's a mint in Denver, and the creation of the Denver Mint was caused a havoc because it having private money introduced whenever the Philadelphia Mint and the government was controlling the issuance of dollars, having an area having the ability to go and get money that was created outside the control of the financial system was threatened that financial system, and the federal government tried to shut down the Denver Mint, which was a private mint, and eventually ended up going to buy out the mint, and that's how they brought it under their control, and possibly is the reason that we have multiple mints that exist across the country today, to give the notion that money was being coined and created in a time whenever money was tied to the different metals that were in the coins. Even the Santa Fe Trail, I don't know that a lot of people understand that the Santa Fe Trail is what came into being at a time whenever we had canceled the National Bank of the United States, and because we did not have a conglomerate or one large institution to go get specie, gold or silver, from England and bring it back over on a ship and provide security for that. Instead, merchants started going to Santa Fe, and Santa Fe was the closest outpost of another country that had access to silver. And so they would go and get the dollar, the Spanish dollar, from Santa Fe. So anyway, I still can't find that a symbol gold. I swear I'll find it. It's a good story as to the government's efforts to shut it down, along with the other e-cash systems.
Just getting logged in so we can check in on the GameStop meeting. So give me a second here. I don't know. You and Rusty can recap some of the stuff we've been talking about, or maybe Rusty's got something on his mind.
Good morning, Rusty. Rusty, any comments as Grant and I go wandering through stable coins and early internet payment solutions?
No, I'm just taking a look at this chart that's currently on the screen. I was never really big into the whole cyberpunk, scene, or kind of what was happening there. But it's interesting to see it go back so far, and to kind of see the evolution of kind of this technology from way back when. A lot of people think it's brand new technology, but a lot of the stuff has kind of been in the works or kind of in the thoughts for a while.
Absolutely. There came going to the notions of settlement that early in the 90s too, like PayPal, and Elon Musk. I don't know, a lot of people remember the story of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, but they came to this notion of using the internet to to speed the settlement of transactions in our monetary system. Just like there's like a clearinghouse, the DTCC is a clearinghouse for stock certificates. There was a federal clearinghouse for dollars or for checks, and it was 2 weeks when I was in high school. I'm not sure the timeline of when that began to change. I think it changed sometime in '99, maybe the early 2000s. But the PayPal was created with the notion of sending money around using the digital accounts that the federal financial system, the regional banks are already using. And that window got closed down to, I believe, 3 days. And think about also money market funds in a world in which the Federal Reserve like lending rate is not at 5% or 0% like we've seen in the last several years, but closer to 8%, 7%. And so that was a way to create seniorage, was to give banks the ability to make money on lending out that money through that 2-week time frame. And those were, I believe, money market accounts. And as the Federal Reserve interest rate was pushed lower and lower and lower, that's also when we began to see this rise in fees. There was I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a time whenever there wasn't a fee for everything in a bank, and that was because they were making money on the amount of time that they could be lending out your cash whenever in that settlement period. So, yay, financial history. Grant, what's the word on GameStop?
Nothing. Still just working through getting logged in. So just got to give me a couple.
Okay. Well, let us know.
And the meeting's not going to start for a little while yet. So there's not going to be any word. This is like I said, this is likely to be not greatly interesting stockholder meeting, particularly today, because they can't say anything that they haven't already said. It's the stuff that we've already said that was kind of interesting about whether, this announcement and this Robinhood thing, which actually I want to find this. So we should all go out sleuthing and see if we can find that tweet on our own or like wherever this came from, because this, to me, I'm not sure where this came from. I can't find this on Computershare. So I don't know what this means or where this is. This looks maybe like somebody crafted this up. It's fun, but I don't know. It was fun to review, like, what does it mean to DRS your shares and whatever, but I can't actually find this thing. So if this was emailed to this dude, then that's how he got it. But I haven't seen anything like this on the internet yet that I can directly put my eyes on.
And did you pull up his Twitter account? Was it possibly on Reddit? Did you check the Wall Street Bets?
This doesn't look like a Wall Street Bets thing. This is this Chuck Hodel, whoever that guy is.
Chuck Hodel. I think he was on the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we're going to cover that the new season of House of the Dragon started yesterday.
Oh, really? So very interesting. I'm still waiting for George R.R. Martin to catch up with the books. But the House of the Dragon, what's is this going back into Valyria? What did you watch it, Rusty?
Yeah, I watched season 1 and I watched the first episode of season 2, and it's kind of the beginning stories of the Game of Thrones. It's like the before story of before the Game of Thrones, so it's like a preload to it, or however you pronounce that word. But yeah, it's a good show. I it's something to watch. It's got an interesting storyline, and I put it on the background and just see how it goes. The first episode was okay, but we'll see how it sets up for the season.
I also think Game of Thrones very interesting. Do you know where George R.R. Martin lives?
I do not, but I know who his artist is for his graphic novels.
Of course. Those are really good graphic novels, though, especially, and I figured this new season might be riffing off the Dunk and Egg graphic novels, or the earlier stories, the short stories that he did in some of his.
No, they're making Dunk and Egg. That's
They
different.
are.
Yeah, they're going to make a Hedge Knight series. They're coming out with the third Game of Thrones series called, based on the Hedge Knight graphic novels.
Well, great news. I really like the Dunk and Egg. I like the you know the young whatever young Prince Hal or anyway. George R. R. Martin lives in Santa Fe, and when I read that story, I often think of it like, I know there's a lot of allusions made to the 100 Years' War, or people who talk about it in terms of like George R. R. Martin was taking from the 100 Years' War. But I say no. He loves American history, and he lives in Santa Fe. What I brought up earlier about the Santa Fe Trail, and also I think living in Santa Fe has given him the ability to take a contrarian or an alternate view to the history of the United States, and I think his the clash that he speaks of is very much about the United States in the time of 1850 and the Spanish-American War, the Mexican-American War. And when I look at the wall, his ice wall to the north, I think about the wall to the south. Um, when he has Dothraki, I'm often thinking of the Comanche. Anyway, I think it's a great sort of preponderance on political events in the United States, and it was no surprise to me that he also wrote himself into a corner, and then needed a studio to find the ending for it. I still have Dance with Dragons, by the way. I don't know if y'all ever read Dance with Dragons, but it kind of gets hella muddled with the third party candidate that gets entered into it. Where is the show, Rusty? Is it on Netflix, or where's?
It's on HBO. It's shown every Sunday night on HBO. I think you can get it on Cinemax and maybe Hulu or a couple other streaming services after fact, but it's every Sunday night on HBO.
And does it have any of the previous cast, or is this a whole new cast of characters 100 years earlier?
It's a whole new cast of characters. Some of the names and the families are still there, but it's a whole new cast of characters. It's the same cast of characters, of course, from season one, but from the different shows, it's a whole new cast of characters.
Mm-hmm. Stark's in it?
Very, very, very shortly. They just barely introduced the Stark family kind of in the second season. They bring a little bit of the mention of the house in the first season, but it's not really based around the Stark family or what's going on in that part of the world.
Gotcha.
Oh man, that was way harder to get logged in than I anticipated. I have no idea what what this Robinhood thing is. That doesn't mean, it doesn't make any sense, because if so let's circle back on this, because I want to give an update to everybody that's been listening and paying attention. If this is real, if anybody knows where this came from, please drop us a note or whatever on the Twitter live stream, the X live stream thing that we're doing. I cannot locate this, and it looks like the way that you have to log in is using your control number. So if you have a control number, you can get logged in, and there does not seem to be any sense of guest if you have a control number. And the control number would have been on the voting information that you would have been sent. So this may be fake. I don't know. We gotta find this. We gotta sleuth this out. But if anybody's got the source of this, it looks like somebody's getting trolled. Probably came from whatever, dusty corner of the internet. Somebody crafted this up with their computer, because I can't seem to find this particularly, and it doesn't seem like the way you log in does not require proof that you're on Computershare. You just need a control number, and a control number is just a voting number for however you would have voted your shares in the annual vote.
Well, maybe it's like a weird, like outer broad view of it. Because if you scroll down there a little bit, it does say that you have to have a control number in order to access the stream as the stockholder. If you look down at the bottom, it says gives you a valid control number. You can barely read it as it's cut off there on that picture, but it says it gives you a valid control number, and if you don't have that, then you're basically a guest, and maybe you can't even stream it unless you have a control number. And so you, in order to stream it or watch it, you have to have the control number. And then if you don't have that, you can just be what is considered a guest watching it through somebody else.
Yeah, but this implies that somehow Robinhood wouldn't have gotten a control number and you wouldn't be able to vote. And I don't know, maybe somebody can fill us in on that one. Like, unless this means that, like, the shares that you have, you were not given investor documents that vote your shares. From my experience with Robinhood, and I only did this, before they took away the buy button. Once Robinhood took away the buy button, I had no interest in being a part of that brokerage anymore. I got my shares out of there. I quit using that platform. I no longer do anything with Robinhood. I remember getting investor documents. So I think through Robinhood, you would have gotten investor documents. You would have been able to vote and whatever. So yeah, I agree. You're supposed to have a control number, and that's how you log in. So don't know where this Robinhood business comes from. I would be shocked if they would call out a specific brokerage. I can't imagine them doing this, because why would Robinhood be any different than some other platform like Webull, which seems to be doing the exact same kind of playbook? They do payment for order flow. They have dubious, practices and whatnot. So, there's a variety of brokerages that sort of behaved in the same way that Robinhood did. So I don't know why they'd be calling these guys out specifically. This looks like trolling to me.
Well, maybe we've been trolled.
Well, we didn't troll, because we gave education. We talked about the DTCC. We talked about seed and co. We talked about direct registrations. When you come to our show, you're going to learn something. We're just going to throw up a tweet and then just move on. We're going to give you the deep knowledge.
Absolutely. But who knows? That there's also, I wondered if there were just so many. When I saw it, I thought, I wonder how many users they have on Robinhood. Has it been a large problem with people trying to contact them who don't have their control numbers? It's possible that could have been the case too.
I don't think so, honestly, because I remember voting my shares through Robinhood. I think Robinhood would be in significant trouble with, the SEC and FINRA if they were allowing you to buy shares and then weren't routing documents to you. That would be like obvious problem. Now, taking away the buy button, I don't know if that's actually in their terms and conditions and whatever. To me, that seems like the kind of thing that should not be allowed, but I don't know how they got around that, or how the SEC hasn't, fined them or done some other kind of a thing with respect to that.
Well, it is true. They did get pressed again in that hearing for disclosure, and making it as early and as prompt as possible. So you're in.
I'm logged in. I'm sitting here waiting for the stream to start. So in 27 minutes, when this stream should start, then we'll be able to catch up on that.
Well, we've got 27 minutes. Do we want to throw any other topics on the table, or do we want to?
Well, yeah, we should keep talking. I mean, we're not just going to have dead air here, right? I mean, that's the mortal sin of any radio show, right? You never want dead air. People come to the show and they're like, "What are these guys talking about?" They're not talking about anything. So Rusty, I'm curious. Did you watch because while you guys were talking about Game of Thrones and whatnot, I was barely listening because I was trying to figure out how to log in. I was trying to get my control number, which seems harder than it's supposed to be. Like I had to kind of actually dig for that. I would have thought that my brokerage would have just provided it, but I guess when I voted my shares, then they archived the documents, couldn't figure out how to unarchive the documents or wherever they're at. So I had to do some digging. But Rusty, did you watch it last night? I heard they fixed the darkness problem that plagued the first season. I don't know if you recall watching the first season of the House of the Dragon, but like there were some episodes where it was so dark you could hardly see what was going on.
I did watch it, and I did watch the season one recap right before the season two started. So I basically spent all day yesterday just watching the House of the Dragon marathon. But I really, like I said, it was a good first episode. We'll see how it starts. I don't want to give away any spoilers to people, but yeah, you could see a lot better. And I do know how some of those first season episodes, parts of it, it is a little bit hard to see what's going on, especially like when they go down to the dragon caves or they're in some of the battle scenes and things like that.
So I didn't get a chance to catch it, but I really enjoyed House of the Dragon. I thought it was pretty good, and I really liked what was it, Rhaenyra? Was that the Rhaenyra Targaryen, the young gal that was the actor that started the show off? I thought she was fantastic. I kind of wish that they'd stuck with that part of the story a little bit longer to give her more screen time. I kind of thought that they could have done the whole season with her, but yeah, I guess they moved on pretty quick to the next actor who took over and was playing her in her middle age, I guess.
Wasn't she the one who died in childbirth? Wasn't that somebody's mother? I forget who. What, did she marry a Lannister?
No, this one's talking about like the prequel. So there was a Lannister who solicits her, but the Targaryens, I think, traditionally married within the family. They were always kept the bloodline pure by marrying brothers and sisters. I think was always what it was talked about. So I don't think so, but I'm not some great historian of these stories. So if you know it better than me, Lucas, then you'll have to tell me. But I thought it was always that they had married brothers and sisters together in that family.
Oh, I think you're talking about Rhaenyra. Or I mean, I'll have to catch
Yeah,
up.
Rhaenyra. That's what I was just mentioning. I was like the young actress that played her. I was trying to say that I thought they moved on too fast from her as a character. Like moved to the Middle Ages like one.
Um, is this Rhae Rhaenyra Targaryen?
All right, now you're gonna make me go pull up the names and find it. Give me a second here.
I swear, there's something like reading the books. There's something about I I I don't even remember, but I used to think well, she married um
I
well
know what Grant is talking about, though, and like I do understand what you're talking about, Grant. Like in the House of the Dragon, the first season, the first couple episodes, they jump through the years just like without even really thinking about it. Like you watch one episode and it'll end, and then the next episode it's 5, 6 years later, and they have two children, and all types of stuff has happened in between. And that was one of the things that kind of threw me off about the show. But one of the things I was liking more towards the end and with the beginning of season two is it's kind of slowed it down, the jumping up between time, and it's more of like what's happening now and in one constant storyline, like you're referencing, Grant. Yeah, I wish you would have been able to spend some more time on those younger characters and could have really drawn out the storylines, but they did just jump over those real quickly.
well, it's been far too long for me. But uh Rhaenyra, I was Rain. I don't even know how I pronounce them, but
This actress right here. This is the one I'm talking about. Her. Millie Alcock, I guess. The young Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon. Personally, like this would have been my preference that they would have stuck with this like particular time frame a little longer. I don't maybe George R. R. Martin felt like the important part of the story happened later, but she was such a fantastic actress in the way that she portrayed this character. I just was fascinated. This is what drew me into actually wanting to watch this show. I remember I was very turned off by Game of Thrones. You know, it's like I didn't even watch the last season. It was like I lost interest in it, and I have no problem abandoning a TV show or a book series when it falls off the rails. I don't. You guys familiar with the term "jumping the shark"? You guys familiar with that one?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well,
Rusty, you know what that one means?
No, I don't. Only
Oh,
thing I
hold
can think
on. We
of
got to
that
pull
has
this
to
up.
deal
We got
with
to pull this up.
Sharknado and
No,
the great television series
it's not
that
that.
is.
It's not that. And I know why Lucas knows it, because he probably watched this show that originally had.
was it? I don't even. I remember it was about like bringing a. Remember when there was Shark Week? I thought it had something to do with Shark Week back in the day.
No, it has nothing to do with Shark Week.
Where does it come with? Is it a Seinfeld reference? It's probably a Seinfeld reference. I did not watch Seinfeld, by the way. But while you're looking it up, this is if you read the books, like there is a lot of Happy Days. Fonzie
No,
jumps the
see, I did not have to look this up. I know exactly what it is. So the origin of jumping the shark, falls to Happy Days, because this,
what?
yeah. So what happens is there's this crazy episode of Happy Days, and I'll just play it. It's pretty short. Where this happens, and I'm gonna mute it because we don't need the stupid audio on here. But like, yeah, here we got the Fonz. He's got his leather jacket on. You know,
Look at those shorts.
oh my god, and he jumps a shark, as part of the show, and
What?
this is yep.
Oh,
And this was the end of Happy Days for many people. That this was just so beyond the pale that the Fonz has his leather jacket on and he's doing this water sports, and he jumps over a shark, and that was it. That was the end of Happy Days at this point, which was a huge show back in the 70s. And I had the pleasure of watching the show quite a bit with my family, because they were really into Happy Days, and I remember this episode. So this is what jumping the shark is, and I thought
I've
Game
never
of Thrones jumped the shark at that last season.
Yeah, well, I've never seen that. I knew the phrase. I always thought it had something to do with like Shark Week and the back whenever there was the Nielsen ratings or whatever, like the ridiculous things that that's what I always thought it had to do with was
See, this is the problem with pop culture, man. You have to have 50 years of history to even know what half of this shit means. It's like there's going to be a scholarship that's going to be devoted to, like, what do all these phrases mean? We've got drift in our language where you can barely even tell what people are talking about anymore, because there's all this embedded cultural references. Can you imagine being like a 10-year-old kid trying to get up to speed on what all these memes mean? Like, what are all these movies these people are talking about? Like, memes from 10 years ago are almost indecipherable to people these days.
I feel sometimes I think I'm at the right age to start being able to answer Trivial Pursuit questions. I remember growing up, they were all about like Dorothy Hamill and Nadia Comaneci, all these names I had no idea who the hell they were. Fonzie, when I watch
Rick, can you imagine this right here? I mean, of all the people who are listening, like, can you even think, like, how many people even have some thought of what this show was? Happy Days, the Fonz, like, these things are just obscure relics. I mean, this is 50 years ago, like, that's a long ass time ago. Like, who watches shows from 50 years ago?
When I was growing up, I would go to my grandparents and watch the Andy Griffith Show in black and white with Ron Howard, and then
For sure, Lucas, because you're old. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, this is impossible to, like.
Well, but I'm also saying, like, it had Young Opie with Ron Howard, and then Happy Days came on in color, and with an older Ron Howard, and which I wondered if I used to wonder if they did specifically, and or intentionally. And then Father Dowling, like when I see Happy Days, I loved Father Dowling. I don't know if you ever caught Father Dowling, but it had I don't even really know the father in Happy Days like had his own show afterwards.
And if you're coming into this show and you're wondering why aren't we talking about GME, it's because we're waiting for 15 minutes and we're kind of just shooting the shit, waiting for the meeting to start. So we will have it on the screen. We've also been talking about some interesting other stuff that seems to be going on in the world. We've got this, which we speculate is some kind of a fake thing that somebody crafted this up. Very well done here. It seems to have fooled all of us, but can't imagine that this thing is real, calling out Robinhood specifically. But you can get into the live stream. You need your control number. If you're trying to do that, your control number would have been on your proxy voting statement, which took me a few minutes to find. So if you're trying to get logged in, highly recommend you try and get logged in before the thing starts, because probably by the time you're going to want to get logged in should be about now, at least 15 minutes ahead of time. But if you can't get logged in, can't figure it out, it's taking you too long, we are going to have it on the screen. So we'll be covering it live as it happens.
In the meantime, we're going to punish you with memories of Tom Bosley.
That's right. Esoteric TV shows from the 1970s and before. I remember in the 90s, actually, Lucas, when I was younger, the Nickelodeon used to show old shows on Nick at Night, and that's where I saw all those old programs. I remember watching Green Acres and My Favorite Martian and all that kind of stuff, because I just watched TV constantly. That's what I did with my youth, just kind of pissed it right down the toilet.
I mean, that's what they were selling us. They were selling us cereals and Skip-Its and all sorts of crappy toys. God bless Nickelodeon. Did you watch Nickelodeon or Nick at Night in the time of like Maya the Bee, Noozles, Fraggle Rock?
Well, I remember Fraggle Rock, but I don't remember some of those other things that you said. Fraggle Rock was not on Nickelodeon. That was on HBO, right?
Maybe, I guess it was. Well, I don't know. Actually, I think
Fraggle Rock was definitely on HBO, and you know how I know that? Because I remember really liking it, and I could only watch it when I was up at my my relative's house, because we did not have that sort of stuff when I was a kid. I grew up with far less access to media. I could only get what was broadcast.
Well, I had to go to my grandparents for these things, and they didn't have HBO, so I must have seen that at some friend's house, or I'm like conflating it that it was on Nickelodeon. But I just think it's very interesting, Nickelodeon, because I later loved anime. I got into anime bigly whenever I was in my teens, and especially whenever like Netflix came around and I could order all of these DVDs of anime. But Nickelodeon started by going around.
Can you imagine Aleph being here for this discussion? Like,
he's going to be,
we're talking about Fraggle Rock, but yep. See, look, it was on HBO.
And also Jim Henson. I didn't actually know that Fraggle Rock was Jim Henson.
Oh, come on! Anything that was puppet based was Jim Henson. There was only two guys that even did puppets that hit pop culture. It was Frank Oz and Jim Henson. Like, if it wasn't one of those two guys, it was nobody.
Didn't Frank Oz work for Jim Henson too? Wasn't he his protege? I think he was.
I don't know. Like, I guess we're gonna have to pull that up.
I almost guarantee it. Prove me wrong. I'm raising my cup and sitting at my table. Frank Oz was Jim Henson's protege. Prove me wrong. No, the Nickelodeon started by going out and buying all of these the rights to a bunch of television.
So best known for his involvement with Jim Henson. So involvement, what does involvement mean?
He's Kermit's voice, isn't he? He's Kermit. Yeah, puppeteer for Jim Henson's Muppets. And Frank Oz, I believe, died of cancer at a young age, if I remember correctly. Fozzie the Bear. Oh, so good. So good. Oh, he was Miss Piggy. And the Labyrinth. Good. Everyone, if you haven't seen The Labyrinth, probably one of the greatest movies of the 80s.
Right. So that's what we're saying. Like, if it wasn't Jim Henson, it was Frank Oz. And I think, those were the two bigs, those guys were the puppet masters.
Yeah.
Don't know if they were the inspiration for Metallica, but probably not.
Vagabond Puppet. He was 19 when he joined Henson. in New York to work on the Muppets. So and I think he worked with Jim Henson until he passed away. Um, I don't know. But anyway, I have to finish the curious start of Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon went out and bought all of these animated franchises from, like, Maya the Bee was Czechoslovakian. The Noozles was early Japanese animated film before the anime like came around. David the Gnome was Danish. Did you ever watch David the Gnome? Going back to Tom Bosley, voiced by Tom Bosley,
Nope.
because they hired all these actors to dub over them in English. So it was the early years of Nickelodeon were quite like international, and I really enjoyed a lot of those early animated cartoons. Like, brought a lot of like the national identity along with them. So some great early series on Nickelodeon. Blah blah blah. Ooh, Frank Oz was also Master Yoda. I'm sure you knew that.
I knew that Frank Oz was involved in the puppeteering for the Star Wars stuff. Back before Star Wars switched to all CGI things, and I think the puppets hold up better than the CGI. Honestly, the CGI suffers too much from digital atrophy. Like our graphics get better, and then our contemplation of what computer graphics can and should look like get worse. So when we look back on things like the puppets, they looked as good as they could look, which was they're real. They're sitting there next to a real person, but the CGI can get dated real fast. So I think anything that was done with live action and miniatures holds up way better. And I think that's why The Empire Strikes Back as a Star Wars movie really holds up over time, because I think they did almost all of that with miniatures, puppets, and traditional filmmaking techniques. And when you do it that way, it holds because it was real. It's just smaller.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Which, by the way, do you know the origins of what Peter Jackson was doing before he did the Lord of the Rings? Has anybody ever told you one of his big movies before he did the Lord of the Rings?
I mean, wasn't he into sort of like gore movies before then? The Cabin, or
Okay, you got to check this out. This one's just crazy. When you think about like what he was doing before he got to do the Lord of the Rings, he did this movie, which I think most people have not seen, but you should definitely see it.
Meet the Feebles.
So this is like so the way that this movie has been described is it's like the Muppets if the Muppets did crack cocaine and like were into prostitution and killed each other.
That yeah, right down Peter Jackson's alley.
Okay, well, so imagine this for a second. So you're going to make one of the most iconic properties of all time, right? Which is the Lord of the Rings, and you're going to get a director that's going to do this, and you go and look up stuff that he's done, and you're like, oh, of course, the person who did Meet the Feebles should be entrusted with one of the most important properties that has ever been created in the history of all storytelling. So, Lord of the Rings, yeah, we should get that guy, the guy that did Meet the Feebles. And I'm telling you, Lucas, when you watch this movie, you will say, what the actual fuck were they thinking? How could they possibly have given this guy the helm?
Well, it's I mean, the movies I was thinking of were Heavenly Creatures and The Frighteners. I don't know if you saw them, but I remember whenever I discovered, like probably on a Yahoo chat group, that Lord of the Rings was being made as live action. I had no idea who he was. I went and got his movies, and I was like,
I mean,
"Holy shit!"
check this out, right? Like, what are they doing? It's like, drug addicted knife thrower Windward. He reveals he's a Vietnam veteran, giving money for drugs under the pretext of charity. This is what this puppet movie's about. It's
Uh,
wild.
I've never seen it. I will definitely get my hands on it.
Well, see, I'm kind of a classical movie buff, you know. This was something that was very interesting to me in my young childhood, you know, and into my adolescence. So I saw all kinds of crazy films through hook or by crook because these things were not accessible via the internet. So the only way you could even watch these things was to get somebody's dubbed VHS tape or to bootleg it from somewhere or to go to a private showing. So, you know, this used to be really hard to ever see anything like this. So the fact that I saw this movie when I did was pretty surprising because it was not easy to put your hands on things like this.
You know, I would go to. I lived when I moved to Austin. I lived a block away from iHeart Video or I Love Video, um, and it was a great video store of renown that had carried every film that you could imagine. And there was a section that was devoted to cult classics, and I would go and get all these strange movies out of the cult classics and watch them, and then wonder what was real. Um, but I missed this one. I don't know how. It's probably always checked out. That's how I missed it. So, because you know they had going back to the days before our online streaming platforms, they would have
Well, if you have one of these near you, I would say make sure you frequent them, you know, that you support them. These things are critically important that these places continue to exist. I recently came across this one and I was just when I had a chance to walk through there, I was like, oh my gosh, this place is so awesome. It's called Videodrome, and it's just a video rental place in Atlanta, but they had so many different movies. And the thing about streaming platforms is things just go on and then they leave, then they go on and then they leave, and some things are getting revisited, right? So like they'll change the movie, they'll edit out scenes, they'll take things out that are offensive or shouldn't have existed or whatever. And so as a historical, you know, touch point and as a relic, like these things are being lost when we don't have the archived physical copies. This is why I think libraries are so important, but also things like this is just a run-of-the-mill video store that you know, exists, and it still rents movies on Blu-ray, VHS, DVD. Like yeah, you just go here and you can just rent a movie the way you used to at Blockbuster, and this thing still exists.
I mean, there's also the running into people and talking to them, to branch out of, you know, we become like victims of our own mental silos. And also, I really like going back to iHeartVideo. They
Aha, they have it. Look, there it is. They've got it. So if you're listening and you want to watch Meet the Feebles and you don't know how to get it any other way, head over to Videodrome and check out Meet the Feebles. They've got it there.
Oh my God. Um, is that a hippopotamus, by the way, on the front cover? It looks like
Yes, that is a hippo, and she has some sort of a weapon there. It looks like a sawed-off shotgun, I believe, is what she's got there.
it makes me think of Disney's Waltz of the Hours. The hippos have forsaken their classical music roots and moved on to punk.
I remembered this one when I was kind of browsing the shelves. Like this to me, I saw this and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed, and I need to get my hands on a copy of this. I would have rented it that very second had I had the wherewithal to watch a DVD. So, all right, we are within about a minute of the start of the GameStop annual meeting, which we said we're going to stream live here. So let me get that queued up so that we can stop talking about esoteric movies and how Peter Jackson ever made the jump from Meet the Feebles to Lord of the Rings. But let me get this on the screen and we'll get ready to stream it live.
He does tell a story about pitching Lord of the Rings to Hollywood executives on the DVDs. If you listen to the extended DVDs with the commentary on, so he does talk about sort of their disbelief. But yes, pull up onto the screen. Are you pulling it? Are you pulling it up?
You know, and for everything that I did, and then I got a 503, so I wouldn't be shocked if like somehow we've you know, we're crashed out again here.
Oh no.
I mean, I definitely had it loaded, and then all of a sudden, when I went back to that tab, even though I was there 15 minutes early, it logged me out. And now apps.computershare.com seems to be down.
Oh my goodness. Cross our fingers. Or you can give us reports back. Let me see if I can find it anywhere. I am finding restreams of it on YouTube, Grant. So if you can't, we can always restream it through there.
Yeah, toss me a link.
Okay.
Because I was gonna stream it through my own, but like I said, like all of a sudden this is just not live anymore. And I was logged in and I saw the screen and everything, and it was all there. And then all of a sudden I'm on a 503.
Curses. I would put this on mute until the meeting starts. I don't think it's started yet, and maybe they get their servers back on. Their cloud back up.
Okay, at least we've got that live. So I'm still gonna try to get the real stream live. Though, give me a second.
I'm actually going to check Roaring Kitty's page to see if he's streaming. Now that might be the alpha.
Yep, I just continuously get this screen right here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this has gotten the hug of death again and that they have no ability to handle this amount of traffic. Because this is all you see if you go there. And no matter how many times I reload this, it does not reload.
Well, Roaring Kitty is not live right now, so he is not restreaming it. I wish he was. I would really love to hear what he has to say.
Well, Lucas, you want to give us a quick search on X and see if you can see if anybody's saying that this thing is actually started?
Yep. Lots of memes starting soon. I don't know that it's on yet.
Because this thing that's on the screen, that is what I saw. But like what happened was I got this this thing across the top that said 503 error. What should be error.
It does look like we can get into it to watch with the guests. I put the link to the right to Edge Media server.com. And it is just some elevator music right now. So GameStop stores music collection. Okay, that is on mute. Grant, do you see the link over in the private chat? There we go. Goodbye, Fawns. Enjoyed a revisit to Jumping the Shark.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Got it live. And I did mute it as well.
I have sweaty palms. You feel free to play that gorgeous music. Certainly.
Well, actually, let me try turning the music on. Does it play it? You hear the?
Yeah, it
Okay.
plays it.
All right, sweet. So then that means we can all watch it together when it starts happening. But nothing yet. And for whatever reason, you cannot directly access it. And I got locked out. I don't know if that's because I got logged out or what happened, but
They are serving cucumber sandwiches with no crusts and lemonade to the GameStop shareholders right now. So as soon as they're in their seats, I'm sure they will. Hey, did you happen to see, by the way, going back to movie theaters, did you see that Sony bought now I can't think of the name. Dinner theater chain from Austin, Alamo Drafthouse Cinemas.
oh, no way. I found the thing that we were talking about earlier. Look at this. Here we go. Ha. Interesting. Check this out, Lucas. Boom.
Oh,
Look, there it is. So that was not fake. So I must apologize to the guy who originally posted that. Like we go back to what's his name. So
Chuck Huddle.
yeah, Chuck. Sorry about that, man. I thought maybe you were trolling us or whatever. You know, you got to have a little suspicion in this day and age for anything that happens because you never know if somebody's faking something. I couldn't find it, but here it is, right there. Look at that. If your shares are held at Robinhood, join here. Join as a stockholder. So they're calling them out.
Wowzers.
Okay, wait, and it's live. So let's listen.
Do you have sound? I don't hear anything.
What was that, Lucas?
Oh, I said I can't hear if the sound is on.
Oh, well, I mean, I unclicked it. It did the same thing we did last time.
Hmm.
That's too bad. Well, he's not really saying much right now, so maybe we can go back to that other YouTube thing and maybe we can get his audio piped through.
You might also, it might be in your audio settings, some sort of echo cancellation or something.
I need to do what?
I don't know if you have, if in your audio settings for StreamYard, uh, echo cancellation, or I don't know. Yeah, try the YouTube. Try the YouTube.
Okay.
Still no audio here, Grant.
Well, Let me check my StreamYard settings. Maybe there is something I can use to pipe the audio. There doesn't seem to be anything.
There it is.
Okay. Sweet. So you can
Turn
hear
it
it
up
now.
if you, yeah, turn it up if you can.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay.
In accordance with the requirements of Delaware General Corporation Law. Notice of this meeting was duly given in accordance with the company's bylaws and Delaware law.
And again, we're expecting nothing
We
of
received an
significance in this
affidavit
anyway, but we'll
from
see.
Broadridge Financial Services certifying that the notice of annual meeting and proxy statement were sent to stockholders beginning on May 1st, 2024.
But one thing that we
The
all
affidavit
anticipated,
is available
that
for inspection
GME is
by
now
any
down
stockholder upon request
significantly.
and will be filed with the company's records. At the close of business on April 19th, 2024, the record date for this meeting, there were 306,185,052 shares of the company's Class A common stock, with 1 vote per share identified as outstanding and entitled to vote on all matters presented at this meeting. There are present at this meeting, in person or by proxy, more than a majority of all the shares entitled to cast votes at this meeting. Based on confirmation by the Inspector of Election, I find that a quorum is present and this meeting is duly constituted for the transaction of business. Each of the matters to be considered today is described in the proxy statement, which was made available as described in the notice of annual meeting. The proxy statement has been filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission and can be found on the Securities and Exchange Commission's website and our website. The first item on our agenda is a proposal to elect 5 directors, with each to serve as a director until the annual meeting of stockholders in 2025 and until his or her successor is duly elected and qualified. The company's nominees are Mr. Cohen, Mr. Attell, Mr. Chang, Mr. Groovy, and Ms. Zhu. The second item on our agenda is a proposal to approve on a non-binding advisory basis the compensation of the named executive officers of the company. The third item on our agenda is a proposal to ratify the Audit Committee's appointment of Deloitte & Touche LLP as the company's independent registered public accounting firm for the company's fiscal year ending February 1st, 2025. The fourth item on our agenda is a stockholder proposal regarding a board skills and diversity matrix. Yumi Narita from the Office of the Comptroller of the City of New York will present this stockholder proposal. Ms. Narita, I would like to invite you to speak now. You will have 3 minutes to present.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Cohen, members of the board, and fellow shareholders. My name is Yumi Narita, and I'm the Executive Director of Corporate Governance for the New York City Comptroller's Office. I'm presenting Proposal 4 on behalf of New York City Comptroller Brad Lander and several New York City pension funds, which hold approximately 255,000 shares of Gamestop, valued at over $3.2 million. Proposal 4 asks the company to disclose in its next annual proxy statement each director's self-identified gender and race and/or ethnicity, as well as the skills and attributes that are most relevant in light of the company's overall business, long-term strategy, and risks. Since we received no invitation to engage from the company's management and have only dealt with external lawyers working on behalf of GameStop, it is unclear whether or not our proposal was actually understood. The statement in opposition to our proposal in the proxy states that the company, quote, does not set specific minimum qualifications for nominees for director and does not have a policy regarding the consideration of diversity for such nominees. Our proposal, however, only asks for disclosure of a board matrix, and we are not advocating, nor have we ever advocated for any quotas. We're also not asking for any changes in your director nomination process. Here's what we do say in our proposal. In its 2023 proxy statement, Gamestop provides little decision-useful data with respect to how its directors' individual qualifications fit together to effectively fulfill the board's oversight responsibility. As half of the board has all 6 disclosed skills, nor is each director's self-identified race or ethnicity explicitly disclosed. A board matrix would enable investors to make better informed voting decisions by providing them with consistent, comparable, and accurate data concerning GameStop's director in a structured and decision-useful format. Shareholders need information on the skills, experience, and diversity of individual directors to assess the quality of each nominee and make informed voting decisions. This is particularly important in the era of universal proxy cards. For example, it would be helpful to ascertain the self-identified gender, race, or ethnicity of any particular director who has assumed leadership roles on the board or the committees, as well as his or her tenure. Furthermore, it is important for the board to know that according to DiverseIQ, 71% of individual directors of S&P 500 disclose a race and or ethnicity. These boards include those of large investors such as BlackRock. New York City's pension funds have reached agreements with 14 portfolio companies that received similar proposals in the past 3 years. At NextEra Energy last year, the proposal received 49% support from investors. Thank you for the board's reconsideration and for shareholder support.
Thank you. Our board of directors has recommended a vote against this stockholder proposal for the reasons stated in the proxy statement. No stockholder director nominations or other stockholder proposals were properly submitted under SEC Rule 14A8 or in accordance with the company's advance notice or proxy access bylaw provisions. It is now 11:47 a.m. The polls are open and stockholders are welcome to vote on the 4 proposals. The polls will be open until the conclusion of any questions related to the specific matters under consideration at this meeting.
Just as a bit of commentary on this, it was recommended that they vote against this, and it's likely that that provision is going to get voted down.
You may submit questions through the meeting portal.
And what did I hear that was actually submitted by BlackRock? Lucas, is that what you heard?
I heard BlackRock mentioned. It seemed to me to come from the New York Comptroller.
Say that again?
It seemed to come from the New York Comptroller.
Issue 120 million additional shares, over $3 billion in proceeds. Okay, and then a number of questions here also about board size and composition, and whether the company has any plans to change anything in that regard. What I'd say there is our nominating and corporate governance committee is responsible for identifying qualified candidates and for recommending the director nominees for each annual meeting. And they'll continue to review those matters in the ordinary course. Our proxy has additional information regarding that process for those interested.
So this is probably them discussing whether Roaring Kitty is going to be appointed to the board. Like, so they think that's where that question is coming from.
Again, a few questions related to direct registration of shares and similar topics. What I'll say there is we have been and will continue to be supportive of our retail stockholders and those that wish to directly register their shares. We do work with our transfer agent Computershare to understand questions and concerns from our shareholder community related to direct registration. And we'll continue continue to monitor this topic and consider how we can be supportive. As you all have likely seen, we've also included certain disclosures related to direct registration in our periodic filings with the SEC as well.
Well, I'm glad we covered that in exhaustive detail. So everybody listening, you know what they're talking about now.
Okay, and then there's a ton of questions just about the business and the company's future plans. I think Ryan touched on that in his opening remarks, so I don't really have anything additional to add on those topics. All right, I'm really not seeing any other pertinent questions or topics related to the meeting, so I'll end the Q&A here. Anyone who wishes to change their previous vote or has not yet voted and wants to vote should at this time cast their vote electronically.
So Lucas, as I mentioned, I didn't really expect much would happen here except for that the price of GameStop would go down, and it did.
Well, there was some very important
It's now 11:51
proposals there.
a.m. I declare that the polls are now closed.
We're getting an echo when we talk, me and Lucas now and Grant.
Okay, I'll try to shut up then.
I'm pleased to report the results of the proposals as follows. 1, Mr. Attell, Mr. Ching, Mr. Cohen, Mr. Gruby, and Ms. Xu have each received a majority of the votes cast, and they have been elected directors. 2, the non-binding advisory vote on the compensation of the named executive officers of the company has been approved by a majority of the shares present or represented by proxy and entitled to vote on this proposal. 3, the ratification of our audit committee's appointment of Deloitte & Touche as our independent registered public accounting firm for our fiscal year ending February 1, 2025, has been approved by a majority of the shares present or represented by proxy and entitled to vote on this proposal. And 4, the stockholder proposal was not approved by the requisite vote.
I am not aware of any other business that should be brought before this meeting. This concludes the business of this meeting, and the annual meeting of stockholders is now adjourned. Thank you for your attendance and participation. We appreciate all the passion and support you, our stockholders, have for GameStop. This webcast will now end.
This concludes the meeting. You may now disconnect.
Well, there you have it, Lucas. What did I say was going to happen?
You were 100% right. Nothing
Nothing of consequence, because that's how these things go. So if you're expecting some great revelation, they can't do it because there are rules against that. So they can't say anything that they haven't already said, which is exactly what occurred here, is that they couldn't say anything they hadn't already said. All they can do is conduct the vote, report on the results of the vote. The thing that whoever that New York City comptroller wanted, that was voted down. So that's it. Nothing of consequence other than the short sellers or whoever it is selling GameStop. So that's what happened.
Well, should we call it a wrap then? I will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out my George R.R. Martin books and dig into Rana Targaryen and try to remember what the foreshadowing was there.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun to sort of just recap a lot of stuff that's going on, and I don't in any way think that this reflects some deep insight into GameStop. There was something that needed to happen today, but this is largely a bookkeeping exercise. You know, you need to hold these votes, you need to elect these directors. So, you know, there was no substantive change in the board of directors from, you know, anybody that's been controlling this company. So Ryan Cohen, Larry Cheng, reelected. This thing that New York City wanted was voted down, and other than that, yeah, we're in business as usual with GameStop sitting on $4 billion in the bank, which equates to roughly $10 per share. And I think if you've been keeping track of anything, they have more cash on hand than most of other companies in the U.S. stock market. So
Quite a piggy bank. All right, Grant. I will see you tomorrow then.
Yep. See you guys later.
Rusty, see you tomorrow.
All right. Have a great day.